In this video, we're going to go into Google Sheets and everything that you can do in them and how to link them to the other things that we've already done. So I'm in the copy of the Google Sheets that I made from the Start Here document, and I'm just on the first sheet over here, which is checklists. These are this one is pretty self-explanatory. You can add your students' names here and any of the checklist items here. So it could be things like permission slips, whether parents signed and returned something, whatever you would normally keep track of. You can just type those right here. And to do that, you just click on the cell that you want up here, and then you can type whatever you want. And these are formatted to drop in vertically like that. So from there, you can use these checkboxes to keep track of them. So once you have your students' names entered in there, to check off the boxes, you can click it. You can also use the space bar. So if you wanted to click a bunch at once, like if all of your kids turned in whatever it is, you can select all of them and then just hit the space bar. You can also hit the space bar again to uncheck them, and this is handy, especially if you have something where most of the kids have completed whatever it is, and you just need to uncheck a few. You can check them all off and then just come over here and uncheck, and that's it. So those ones are pretty easy to edit. The next one is attendance, which is also set up the same way. So you can just enter your students' names. You can enter the date here, and then just check away if they attended or not. This is, I would say, if you're not planning to use the Google form to keep track of attendance. So I wouldn't use both. I would just choose one. So this is if you just want to get in and quickly check each day on your Google Sheet. The Google form looks similar, but it would drop in your data a little bit different, and it's really just a preference of how you want to keep track of it. Do you want to fill out a Google form each day for all of your kids, or do you just want to come into Google Sheets and check them off? So there is that. The next one over is the gradebook, and I have these notes here just so you know which ranges I used for these drop downs. So once you kind of have yours set, you can delete that and put your student's name there, but I just wanted to make sure that you could easily see and know which ranges I used to create that drop down. So this is just a pretty standard gradebook. You can put your standard or assignment there. Again, all of your students' names go here. And then the exciting part again is that you have these drop downs where you can just choose whichever option you need for that student, for that particular assignment or standard. So to edit these, we're going to get into the ranges sheet, and we're looking at the ranges 1 column. So over here is the ranges 1, and these are all of the options that show up as the drop down. So to edit these, you can just change these if they don't match what you need them to say. So you might use the number grading system or letters, or whatever it is that you use. You can put those categories here. Now this is set so that it has these 4 options as a drop down, but that might not fit for you. So let me show you how you could actually completely change the drop down option to fit whatever you needed, whether you needed more drop down options, less, whatever it is. So if you needed more, you would just type whatever else you needed. So if it was letter grades, A, B, C, D, all of that stuff, you could just type one for each cell there. And then to change it over on your gradebook, you're actually going to go back to your gradebook. I suggest just starting with one cell to make sure that it works, but once you kind of have it down, you can select all the cells that you want to be a drop down at one time and do it, and it will apply to all of them. So I'm just going to show you with this one, but you would make sure that that cell is selected, and you would come up to data and go to data validation, and it's going to show you which cell you're in here, and it'll ask you for the criteria. And you want to list from range. So this is what you want. You also want it to show a drop-down list in the cell, so make sure that's checked. And then this is where you're actually going to type the ranges that you want. And this is the only part that might be a little bit tricky until you just get the hang of the pattern that it wants for your range. So you want to type in first the name of the sheet that you're using. So this is called ranges. So you're going to type in ranges. Then you're going to follow that with an exclamation point, and then you want the beginning cell for your dropdown and the end cell for your dropdown. So I'm not going to change it yet. I am just going to point out exactly which cells it's pulling from right now so you can see what I mean. So right now it's set to do A2 through A5. So if I hit cancel and come back over here, you can see that we are in A2 through 5. So that's where it's pulling from, and that's how you would read it. So if you wanted to do ranges 2, so if you wanted to change it to this number grading system, you could do that by just changing it from, instead of A2 to 5, it would be B2 to 5. So I'll show you how to do that. So if I go back over here, go to data validation, and I'm going to change this. Since everything is still typed there, I can just change the letters there and hit save. And now I have those number options instead of the advanced proficient, nearing proficient. So that's how you can easily change it. So you just kind of have to get into the pattern of speaking, Google Sheets speak, basically. So you just type that sheet name, and for this one it's ranges, and then again the exclamation point, and then the starting cell, a colon, and then the ending cell, and that's it. So you can also play with this stuff down here if you want to. You don't have to though, and then you just hit save. If you wanted to take it off of your cell, if you didn't want to have that as an option, you would just highlight all of the cells that you do not want to be a drop down, and you would just click remove validation, and they would just return to just normal cells. So there's that. You also have the same sort of format on the weekly work sheet. This one is a little bit different though. It's formatted that it's complete, incomplete, or not turned in. So as I mentioned in the introduction video, this is a system that I use in my classroom where I have a set assignments. I have a set of work that my students complete each week. And it's the same kind of work. So obviously the activities and the assignments themselves are different, but they fall into the same category. So I always have a math practice activity for them to do. I'll have spelling and grammar practice for them to do, usually some sort of writing assignment that I want them to complete that week. And so throughout the year, I train my kids that, this is the work, their classwork that needs to get done every single week. And I always like to return it quickly and timely so that they get feedback. But these typically aren't assignments that I'm taking for a mastery grade. These are more something that I'm using for formative data, and that I'm using to really see who has what standards, who needs to go back and do some reteaching, things like that. So they're not assignments that I put a grade on other than if they are complete, incomplete, or not turned in. Obviously, I'm still looking through them and again, taking that formative data to inform my teaching, but as far as the grade on the assignment goes, it's just complete, incomplete, not turned in. So that's how I use this. So each week I would type in the assignment. I would say math practice, their spelling practice, whatever grammar activity, whatever writing activity, all of those things I would type out. And then for each one of my students, I would type out their names, and once the week was over, again, it would just be really quick for me to just, after I've gone through it, just go through and check off if they've completed it, if it's turned in but incomplete, or if they didn't turn it in at all. So there's that. Now, what I would do is for each week, I would actually make a copy of this sheet so that I have a different sheet for each week. So if I were doing this for myself, what I would do is actually change this from just weekly work to weekly work 1 or week 1. And then I can fill it out or leave it blank. And what I would do before the next week is I would actually duplicate this sheet. That way I have a fresh sheet each week and I can easily kind of flip back and forth to find the different weeks. Just like I would in my grade book. If I were using a like paper grade book, I would flip back and forth between the weeks. So this is kind of like doing that digitally. So to make a copy of that, you can just duplicate here, and it's just going to label it copy of. And this one, I changed the title over here, but it didn't change over here. So you would actually need to rename it, and you could do it like that. And same thing over here. If this was the copy, this would be week 2. So I would get rid of copy of and change it to week 2, just like that. So that way I could just click back and forth to see my students work throughout those 2 weeks. So that's what I would do. If you didn't want to do that, if you didn't want to have multiple sheets for something like that, or your grade book, you can always, I did the first sort of set of this rainbow color, and you can always copy and paste a column. So if you got to the end over here, you filled all of this in, and you wanted to start back over at the pink one, all you would have to do is just click on the top of that column and copy it and come over to the next blank one and hit paste, and it pastes exactly what was in that column, even the drop down stay and everything like that. So again, if you didn't want to have different sheets going for each week or whatever, you can just continue adding on and just continue moving sideways. So there's that. Now this is also what I use when I'm doing these progress reports. So let's say that I had already filled in my weekly work grades, my complete and incomplete and everything. This is where then I would want to share that information with my families. Normally, if we were in school, I would be sending all of that work home, and I have a cover sheet that goes, I just staple it all together, and I have a cover sheet that goes on the front that looks similar to this, but it just says in paper if the assignments are complete, incomplete, not turned in, things like that. So, and then I train my parents and my students to share those with their parents so that they know to regularly check their backpacks for those. Obviously, since we are distance learning, I won't be sending anything home with my students for quite a while, and but I still want to keep my families informed about how their kids are doing each week. So that's kind of where this idea came from, as a way to kind of continue that routine and share this with families. So this is how I would do it. I would first fill in my weekly work grades over here. Then I would use those grades to populate this over here. So these are, we are doing live lessons over Google Meet right now. So I want to make sure that I'm including almost just like an attendance report of were they there for our Google Meet lesson? Did they participate? So that's this drop down here. So they either participated or they didn't attend. So I would fill out all of those. I would also change this to include the dates for the week. That one's pretty simple. And then this one over here would actually be the assignments. So again, I would change the dates. I would probably, I absolutely would put the assignment name right here. And then again, I would put complete, incomplete, or not turned in. And I would do that for all of these. Now, I included 5, just thinking, you know, there's 5 days in the week. So if you were doing live lessons, there's 5 right there. You might have an assignment a day, and it could be, did you complete all your assignments on Monday? So you could change this to say Monday's assignments, Tuesday's assignments, Wednesdays, and so on. You could do something like that. If you don't need all of these or you need more, you can always just highlight whatever you want to get rid of and come up to here and delete or cut and just go from there. So you have those options. So now let me show you how I would put this into this progress report that I would share with parents. So the first thing that I would do is I would actually pick which one I wanted to use. So I'm just going to use this first one here. And I would make a copy of this just selected slide. So just this first one here. And what I would do is I would start with my first student and I would actually title it their name and then progress report. So I'm just going to say student 1 weekly progress report. Now you can choose where it's going to go in your drive and everything like that, but you can just hit OK, and there's that. Then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one. From here, once it loads, now you're ready to drop in the data from over here. Now you can add a text box and put their name on here just so there's another place where it's at, and you can change the font and all of that good stuff. And I didn't even type 1. There we go. So you can change the font, make it bigger, change the color, all that good stuff. You can edit it just like that. Then once you're ready to grab this information, once you have picked all your drop downs and everything like that, all you have to do to get it over into your Google Slides presentation is select all of the cells that you want, and then you just copy it, come back over here, and you can hit paste. And it's going to prompt you to either choose to link to the spreadsheet or paste unlinked. If you link to the spreadsheet, then if you update any of the information in those cells in your Google Sheets, it will update in the Google Slides. So if you are planning to use the same cells each week, you could do that and then just update in Google Sheets, and it will automatically update in Google Slides. If you are not planning on doing that and you want to create a different one for each week, where you don't want it to be updated in Google Sheets, then you would choose to paste unlinked. So you just kind of have to think about which one works for you. So I'm just going to click paste, and there it is. And from there, you can resize it and drag it over and make it fit where you want it to go. Make it as big or small as you want, and then that's it. From here, what I would do is once I had this sort of built, all I would do is put it in my student folder. So these are the folders that I was talking about down here. So in my Google Drive, I have a folder for each one of my students, and that folder has been shared with them and their parents. So I would drop this presentation in there so that they would have access to view it, and that way they're informed about their progress for the week. Now, again, you do want to be mindful of your sharing settings. So if your district restricts access to things, you want to make sure that you have it set so that anyone with a link can view it. Otherwise, your parents won't be able to see it. So you can just change that here by changing it to anyone with a link, and done. And then you should be good to go. So that's what I would do for that. Now, that's just one student who you used this template for. Now, if you are keeping it linked, and even if you're not, you probably want to have this page available and a separate page for each one of your students. Otherwise, you're going to probably get confused and you're going to erase their progress when you don't mean to. So to do that, what I would do is actually come up here, and you're going to choose copy to a new spreadsheet. So you want to make sure that you are on the selected sheet that you want. So you want this one that's just your template, and you are going to choose copy to a new spreadsheet, and it's going to say okay, and I should have clicked open spreadsheet, so let me do that again. New spreadsheet and open spreadsheet. Okay, here we go. So what I would do from here is, first, I would link this spreadsheet back to my other spreadsheet. That way I can easily get to it. And so it is almost like it's in the same spreadsheet. So I would first title this one Student Progress Report Data, I guess. You can call it whatever you want. So then I just want to just change that just to be sure, and make sure I'm in editor, and then I can copy my link and click done. Now I'm going to take that link and I'm going to go back over here to my original spreadsheet, my original sheet, and I'm going to drop that link somewhere over here so that when I'm working on all of my other pages here, I can easily get to the sheet where all of my students' data is. So I'm going to just pick a cell over here, and I'm going to come up to Insert and Link. Now you can title the text. You can say Student Progress Report Data. That's what I called that sheet. And then you can just paste your link like that, and it'll be right there. So that way it stays linked, and I personally prefer to do it this way just because otherwise you're going to be adding all of these sheets to this one Google Sheets, and it's going to get really cluttered really quickly. So this is a way to kind of keep it together, but also separate it so that you can keep it a little bit more organized. I hope that makes sense. So you can change the font and the color and everything if you want to. I'm not going to do that right now, but I do like to text wrap things, and that just means that it's going to, instead of going over into this other cell, it's going to bring it back so it fits all in one cell, just like that. And again, you can change all of the text options there. I probably would make it a little bit bigger just so it's, I see it and it's easy to click on and everything like that. But that's what I would do. Now that I am over here, so this is the Student Progress Report templates. What I would do is I would start making tabs of the exact same page. So I would choose to duplicate, and I would rename it my students' names. So I would rename this Student 1, and then I would duplicate this one, and this would be Student 2, and I would do a different sheet for each one of my students so that I would be able to fill in their individual data for each week. And that way, all I would have to do when I was building this is I would just toggle back and forth between this, my original sheet where all of my information is on my gradebook or my weekly work grades, and this one, and I can just quickly fill in and then copy and paste directly from this one into my weekly progress report. Now, the other really important thing that you have to make sure you do when you do this is, if you notice it's telling me this is invalid, that's because it doesn't have the range sheet to pull from in this sheet's presentation. So I also need to go back over here. I need to click on my ranges sheet, my ranges page, and I need to copy this to that same presentation, to that same spreadsheet. So I'm going to choose copy to, and I'm going to say existing spreadsheet. It's going to pull up all of my spreadsheets here, and I just want to click it should be, if it's the last one you worked on, it should pull up your most recent right here. So that's it, and I just click it and click select. Now, when I go back over to this one, I see that there's a copy of ranges, and you can retitle it, but it's fine. And now it should actually, you know what, I bet I do have to change it because otherwise it's a different name. So yes, I'm going to rename it and just take off that copy of, and that should fix it. Okay, now let me try. Yep, there we go. So you just have to make sure that it's named the same because that's how it's pulling the data for the dropdown. It has to know the name of the sheet you want it from. So if it's named copy of, that's different than ranges. So just change that. Super simple, easy, and then you're good to go. So again, this is what I would do personally just to keep it organized so that I had a different one for each student. It's a little bit of work up front, but once you get it set up and going, I promise you it will save you so much time and your parents will be so happy because you are communicating with them on a regular basis about exactly how their students are doing, and they always appreciate that. So that's how I would do that. Now, the last thing that I want to show you with Google Sheets is about the Google Forms, because this is the other really awesome thing about these two Google things. So I'm going to get back into this, the parent communication Google form that I showed you in the last video. Now, I told you that you can make this form talk to Google Sheets and store all of your data. And to do that, what you're going to do is you are on sort of the editing side of your Google form. So this is where you can change all of your questions and things like that. And to make it talk to your Google Sheet, what you want to do is click on responses here. And when you do that, you'll see this little icon here, which is the Google Sheets icon. If you click on that, it's going to pop up an option. I think mine is already set. So let me see if I can unlink it so you see. There we go. Okay, I had already linked mine. So let me unlink it so you can see what it looks like. So when I click on this, it's going to ask me, do I want this to link to an existing spreadsheet or a new one? Or create a new one. You don't. You want to select an existing spreadsheet and then click select. Again, it's going to pull up all of your most recent ones. And so I want this copy of Digital Teacher Binder because that's the one that I've been working in. I haven't retitled it or anything. So I'm going to click that one and then hit select. And now it's linked. It's going to open up a new copy, but it's the same copy that I have over here. But you'll notice that it's added a new sheet over here. And if I come back over here and scroll, it should be there also. Oop, there it is. Okay. So it's going to title it Form Responses, and you can change that. So you can change this to Parent Communication, just like that. So, and it's also going to have the little icon for form responses so that it's linked. That way you know. You can also move the order of these. So if you didn't want that one to be like your first one, which is where it just drops in, you can drag it to wherever you want it to go. So after you've linked it, now it has all of your questions that are on your form right here. So it has student name, parent guardian name, method of communication, all that good stuff. It's going to show up right here. So now when you fill it in, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, it's going to populate right here. Now you can leave it just like this and it'll do its job. If you want it to look prettier, you can do that. You can select the cell that you want. So this is the timestamp that I was talking about. So it is going to timestamp everything for you so you know the date and the time. So once you select a cell, you can come over and this icon is the fill cell color. So you should see all of these colors loaded that match the theme. So you can pick whichever one you want. You can also change the font and make it as big as you want. You can also center it like that. You can make it bold, all of that stuff. So you could do that for all of those and go to town. You can also, if you didn't want the cell to be colored, but you wanted the text to be colored, you would just select the cell and you would come over to text color and you can, oops, I need to highlight it first. And then you can change it like that. And again, you can move it around in the cell where you want it to be. You can change the font to be whatever you want. You can make it nice and big and bold. And you would want to text wrap that so you can see the whole thing, just like that. So you can totally make it your own and do whatever you want with all of these cells and things like that. But the really cool part is this part. So I'm actually going to go over here and I'll show you again what it looks like if I click on it from my Teacher Hub. So I'm going to come down to Google Forms, and then I'm going to click on Parent Communication. There we go. So let's say that I'm ready to fill this out. So I'm going to just, again, student 1 is my best student today, and they have parent 1, of course. So if this were me actually filling this out, this is what I would do. I would type my student's name, the parent that I spoke to, the method of communication. So if I called them on the phone, I would click that, and any notes that I have. So I would say spoke to parent 1 about returning permission slip for field trip. So whatever notes you need to take, and then you just click submit. It's going to say that your response has been recorded. And then if we come back over here, there it is. So it populated already, and you have that documentation of exactly what your communication was about. So you are able to do this with all of the different Google Forms that I've included. So again, you can take attendance this way. You can keep track of your logins and passwords this way. You can document any interventions that you've done with your students this way. And the other ones that are included, let me pull it up, are there's a daily check-in one and a reading log one that you can actually share with your students, and you could have those linked to your Google Sheets and actually have all of your data for their check-ins and their reading log populate in your Google Sheets, so you have a record of that and it's done for you. So I hope that you are excited to use Google Sheets, and it's going to be a huge time saver for you. I hope that making your Google Hub, your Teacher Hub, is going to be super helpful for you this year and just help you stay organized and on top of all of the things. That was my goal with this product. That's all I have to share for you for this product. But like I said, I hope that it is something that you will get a lot of use out of this year, because we know that if there's ever a year where we need some things taken off our plates, this would be it. So that is it for me. I will say good luck to you. Hope you have a great school year, and I hope you enjoy the product.